Listen, I can't tell you what an honor it is to be here and to see how much progress we have made in the last year. And you know, when I first stopped here to meet David and see the extraordinary damage almost exactly a year ago, in my wildest dreams, I don't think I ever thought, come up here, Barb, come on. I never thought in my wildest dreams that we would have made the progress that we have as quickly as we have, and with as much dignity and common sense, which is, of course, particularly abundant among Vermonters. I want to thank a few of the folks who have been so critical in making this moment possible and this recovery possible. Reverend Sandy Daly, is she here?
I am.
Oh, there you are.
Here I am.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you've done. As you might not know, Sandy is part of the Southeast Vermont Recovery Long-Term Committee. That was backwards. The Vermont Long-Term Recovery Committee. And she and her team have done an extraordinary job, along with the other 12 recovery teams across Vermont, in getting us where we are. So thank you, Sandy, and thanks to all of the folks that have joined you in that effort. It's been a large and group effort, and we know you're sharing the credit among all those who work so hard.
I am. Many groups as well as so many individuals who stepped up.
Absolutely. I want to thank, we're not here, but our fire chief, Mike Picasso, who's done such a great job, as well as Police Chief Eugene Wren, and those two just work, as you know, their teams are working tirelessly day in, day out to get us back on our feet. Special thanks to Barbara Holliday for putting this together in Whetstone Studios.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I just want to recognize the work of Barb Sondag, but I'm going to do that in a second so I can embarrass her further. Listen, I want to talk a little bit about where we are, where we're going, and why this moment is so important to us. Irene hit first in Windham County and Bennington counties. It came in from the south. And we know that the distance that we have traveled in the short period that we have is simply because Vermonters reach out to friends, reach out to neighbors, reach out to strangers, and we take care of each other. And I know that there has been so much pain. There has been so much loss. We've got a long way to go. But I hope that we will recognize today and in the days going forward as we approach August 28th, the extraordinary commitment, contribution, and recovery as a result of the generosity of every single Vermonter and strangers who came in from out of state to give us a helping hand in our time of need. I want to talk a little bit about where we are and where we've got to go. Right now, we're the tale of two states. We really are. Those who never got hit by Irene, who moved on in their lives after being extraordinarily generous to their neighbors. And then we have the folks who got hit, and their lives are not back. They're still feeling huge pain, emotional turmoil, financial turmoil. It's the folks that lost their homes, lost their belongings, lost their businesses, lost their farms, lost their mobile homes, lost so much. So I hope that as we stand here beginning this commemoration of the worst storm ever to hit Vermont, that we can use this as an opportunity to recommit ourselves, helping those in Vermont who still are feeling so much pain. That's our job as Vermonters. We've made the promise that we're going to rebuild this state better than the way Irene found us. There's no better example than this building, this project, everything that's happened in Brattleboro, from here all the way down through Flat Street. But we got a lot more work to do, and let's do it together. I want to talk a little bit about what we've done so far. We have 16 disaster case managers working through our community action organizations, including SEPCA here in Windham County. They're there to help anyone who still needs help. They're developing individual recovery plans for all those who were hit. Who are they working with? 7,000 Vermonters registered with FEMA for help. 7,000 Vermonters. 5,000 so far have received direct benefits from FEMA for the state of Vermont and their local communities. We still have 700 of the most challenging cases who are still waiting. And frankly, they are the saddest stories. They are the toughest stories. They're the ones who need us the most. I am frustrated. You are frustrated. We are frustrated. But we got to continue to turn our frustration into action and ensure that we stick with those 700 individuals until we get them back. We'll never put them back where they were, but we can get them much closer to a full recovery than where they are today. That's my commitment. That's your commitment, I know, 1 year later. Where are we? In terms of Irene recovery, we have now distributed $23 million in individual assistance to those folks that I just talked about that got hit so hard. There's millions and millions more work to do. By condemning the mobile homes, and don't forget our mobile home owners got hit the hardest in my judgment. They're the most vulnerable. They tend to be closest to the brooks and the rivers. By condemning those homes last winter, which was an action I took, we've now gotten 1 million of that 23 million directly to mobile home owners. There's nothing more satisfying for me than going into the parks, seeing new homes, highly elevated, so the next time we get hit by a flood like Irene, they won't get flooded out back in their mobile homes. But we have more people to get back before we quit. The 9 long-term recovery committees that are working so hard continue to work to do the work that has to be done. They're now dispatching volunteer labor, builders, both skilled and unskilled, to help folks who need help so badly. Of the 108 home buyouts that have been approved so far, we've distributed $24 million to those. Too many Vermonters are still waiting for FEMA to approve their buyouts. We're going to continue to hammer on the federal government with our great congressional delegation to get that done. I want to talk a little bit about the local response. And Barb and the select board here who's worked so hard in Brattleboro with their team of so many others. This is where we are. $125 million has been obligated across the state to communities, roads, bridges, culverts, other damage done to our local roads and bridges, not state roads, but local. VTrans continues to partner with our local communities to help them get through the extraordinary bureaucracy of the federal government. It's cumbersome, it's slow, it's frustrating, but we're helping out in that process. When FEMA says no, and they will, to things that we desperately need, we're going to work with you to appeal those decisions until they say yes to what we deserve to get. What are examples of that? Right now, FEMA is saying no to upgrading our culvert size and the height of our bridges to a higher standard than the federal government to ensure that next time we get a storm, we're not right back where we are right now. Why is that so important? Listen, I've been governor for a little over a year and a half. I've now managed in that period 4 storms, not one, we're talking about Irene today, but 4 storms. We had the biggest blizzard ever recorded in Vermont history a year ago, February. Let us not forget we're a farm state, biggest blizzard ever, that's a big deal. Second, we had the floods of April that did an extraordinary damage. People lost homes, businesses, roads and bridges wiped out, FEMA came in. Then we had the floods of May, roads, bridges wiped out, houses and huge destruction. Then we had Irene. Now, put these dots together. 1 governor, 4 storms, worst storms ever recorded, first year and a half in office, forest fires raging at greater levels in America right now than ever recorded, one of the greatest droughts to be recorded in American history, drying up the food belt, ensuring that farmers struggle to pay for grain, that we're going to be struggling to pay for food, polar caps melting. What does all this say? Very simple. What politicians won't talk about. We are seeing the effects of our addiction to oil. We are seeing the effects of climate change. We are living it every single day. In Vermont, we can prove that we can rebuild this state better than Irene found us and more prepared for climate change storms that are be coming at us with more ferocity than anything we ever thought we'd experience. I can tell you, as a kid who was born and raised in Windham County, we did not used to get 10, 12 inches of rain dumped on us in 6 hours. That was not a Vermont storm. It is now a Vermont storm. Let's wake up, America, move to renewables, get off of oil, and recognize that as we rebuild, it's higher, smarter, and better than before. FEMA, give us bigger culverts, higher bridges, or you'll be back here paying for the same damage all over again. That's penny wise and pound foolish. Wake up, Washington, D.C. Second, They tell us they're not going to pay for helping us move debris from our banks of our rivers, the extraordinary dumps that we all became. That's ridiculous. They got to help us. We can't recover unless we get that debris out of the way. So, two things I want to thank Mike Malicki, the legislative delegation from this county that worked so hard, Jeanette White, Peter Galbraith, and all the House members that delivered. Two things that made a difference the legislature did. The first is, for any town, like Brattleboro, that sees that their equalized grand list rises more than 3 cents, the state of Vermont is going to pay the difference. In other words, we didn't want to shift the burden of communities that got hit hardest by Irene onto the hard-pressed property taxpayers of the state of Vermont. The state will pay the difference. Second, for those that lost their homes in the FEMA buyouts, if they ever come through, they have a 25% match. This legislature had the wisdom to say Vermont will pay that match. Towns, local communities, and hard-pressed property tax owners won't. That's good news. So thank you to Mike and to the other legislators that worked so hard on that project. The others are out knocking on doors. Malicki's got it easy. I just want to close by saying this. 500 miles of roads, 34 state bridges, extraordinary damage to local towns and communities, 26,000 acres of farmland lost, prime ag land, 437 farms. Here's the good news. We got money through VITA, so the businesses, most of them are back. Those that aren't back, we want to help get back. The homeowners are coming back, getting into their homes, slowly but surely. More to do, but we're getting there. We'll rebuild the houses. We'll rebuild the bridges. We'll put back the culverts. We'll put back the businesses over time. We will recover our material investments that got hit so hard. But two things we cannot do without your help. First, we cannot forget the Vermonters, the 6 Vermonters who lost their lives in Irene. As we celebrate and acknowledge the work we've done and the fact that we have a lot more work to do, let's not forget Kevin Davis from Ludlow, who died in the storm. Let's never forget Ivana Tisaba from Macedonia, who was here in Windham County as a guest worker and got washed down the river in Wilmington. Let's never forget Anthony DeLesney from Brattleboro, who lost his life. Or Sergeant Sean Stalker, who came back from Afghanistan after being deployed to the Vermont National Guard, exhausted, tired, having not seen his family, knows how to operate a backhoe and an excavator, saw what happened in his community around Cavendish, went into the huge hole in Cavendish that was carved out by a river, we call it the Cavendish Canyon, went in there with little sleep after being deployed to fight for our freedom, and lost his life in a heart attack as he was helping the Vermont National Guard recover. Let's not forget Mike Garifano and his son, little Mike. Mike was a typical example of Vermonter. Had worked for years for the Rutland city water supply. Mendon is where that supply is fed. Went up Mendon Brook to the dam to make sure that Rutland during the storm wouldn't lose their water. He and his son went up together. Mendon Brook rose. They got taken away by that brook. That leaves Sally and their brother Tom without a husband, a dad, and so many other family members. So let's remember them as we commemorate this anniversary, and let's rededicate ourselves to more work, more volunteer labor, and more dollars to help people close the gap. What can we do? I have here a license plate. I am Vermont Strong. We have to raise $10 million to the Vermont Disaster Relief Fund in order to close the gap between the paltry amount of money the federal government gives you to recover if you lost your home and what you need to get back on your feet. So far, we've raised about $3.6 million of that money. If we can sell 50,000 of these plates, we raise another $1 million. That's the fund of last resort, the place that helps you when everyone else has said no. So buy a plate, put it on your rig, put it on the shelf, give it to a friend. We've sold 27,000. When we get to 50,000, that's another $1 million in the Vermont Disaster Relief Fund. I want to give this plate, which says, "Thank you, Barbara," to Barbara Sontag, who did extraordinary work in Brattleboro, helping people recover. It's not just Barb, it's all of you, but I'm giving this to Barb as a symbol of your great work. So thank you, Barb. So that's it, folks. Thanks so much for everything you've done. We stick together. We're tough. We're Vermonters. We are Vermont strong. More work to do. Let's use this anniversary as a time to not only congratulate ourselves for the work done so far, but to rededicate ourselves to the mission that is not yet accomplished. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Doug.